This is a true honor. I get to talk to a coach who coached my favorite team back in the 70s, early 80s into the 90s. He was a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was also an outstanding player. Don Shula. How you doing, Mr. Shula?
Doing great.
So you were at John Carroll here. How did you end up at John Carroll for college?
Oh, when I got out of high school, all the veterans were getting back from the service, and they were getting all the scholarships, and I couldn't afford to go. So I decided to stay out and work a year and then go to college. And I bumped into my old high school coach, and he said, "Don't do that. You might not ever go." He said, "I know this coach at John Carroll who will be, he'll be looking for talent, and I'll recommend you." So he did, and that's how I got to John Carroll.
And you end up rooming with Carl Tassif. Did you know him from beforehand, or is this just...
No, I knew that he went to Cleveland East High School, and when we were freshmen together at John Carroll, we got to be roommates, and then became friends, lifetime friends. And Carl was a great guy, a great football player.
And then you end up signing with the Cleveland Browns in '51. Did Paul Brown actively recruit you, or was it just a random signing?
Well, actually, playing at John Carroll was right in the shadow of the Cleveland Browns. And my senior year, we played Syracuse University in Cleveland Stadium, and Paul Brown and his whole staff were there scouting Syracuse. And we ended up winning the game, and both Carl Tassif and I both got drafted by the Browns.
Did you have any idea that the two of you would end up being selected by the same team?
No, we really didn't. It's just something that, from a small school like John Carroll, being selected at all was, the furthest thing from our mind. But as it turned out, in a game when we beat Syracuse and we both had big days, that's the game that impressed Paul Brown and his coaching staff.
What was Paul Brown like as a coach?
Just a great coach, great teacher. He just, he just covered every possibility, and there wasn't anything that he didn't prepare you for.
Then you're part of, at the time, what's the biggest NFL trade in history. 15 players, you and Carl, Bert Retchishar, and several other players end up going to the Baltimore Colts. How much of a shock was that to you?
Well, it was, the way it happened, I was going to grad school in the off season, and I had some time between classes, and I picked up the newspaper, opened the sport page, and my picture was in it. And what's my picture doing in the paper? And I looked and said, Brown's complete trade, 10-for-5 trade with the Colts. That's how I found out about it.
And you got to play for another outstanding coach there in Weeb Eubank.
Yeah, Weeb was a Paul Brown disciple and used pretty much the same playbook and covered all the details, and was a great football coach.
And then after your career, you get into coaching. Was that your plan all along?
Well, I played for 7 years, and then when it became apparent that I was coming to the end of my career, I started to look for the possibility of getting into coaching, and I was recommended to the coach that just got the head coaching job at the University of Virginia, Dick Forrest, and he hired me sight unseen over the phone.
What was he like to play under or coach under?
Who? Dick Forrest?
Yeah, Dick Forrest.
He was the guy that came from, worked under Colonel Red Blake at Army, and that was the basis of his football. So it was pretty different than what I had grown up under, and so it was very interesting. But he was an excellent coach.
And then you move on to Kentucky, where Blanton Collier, who later would coach in the NFL, was. What was he like?
Blanton Collier was just a genius of a football coach. Probably, I doubt if he ever played the game. He just was a guy that studied the game and was a great teacher, a lot like Paul Brown.
When you became the head coach of the Colts, was it based upon Weeb Eubank recommending you, or was it strictly based upon the Colts owner at the time, Carroll Rosenblum?
Well, they were looking to replace Weeb Eubank, and Gino Marchetti was their captain, and a great football player, a Hall of Famer, and Rosenblum loved him. And Rosenblum said to Marchetti that he was going to make a coaching change. And he said, who should I hire? And Marchetti told him, he said, why don't you look into this young guy, Don Shula? And Rosenblum said, you mean the guy that played here and wasn't very good? and Gino said, yeah, but he's a good coach. I was at Detroit with the Lions at that time. And so Rosenblum called me and said, you've been recommended. You think you're ready for the job? And I said, the only way that you'll find out is if you hire me. And he liked that answer and hired me.
So there you are, 33 years old, coaching an NFL team. What was that like? It's just, you have veterans on the squad.
The toughest thing was coaching players, that I had played with and players that I had played against. And now all of a sudden I'm up there and I'm their head coach. And a lot of them were much better players than I ever was when I was a player. So I had to, I had to convince them every meeting, every practice that this was the right thing to do, and I knew what I was doing, and eventually they bought into it.
And you had a pretty good quarterback there in Johnny Unitas.
Yeah, Unitas was unbelievable. He's just a guy that was tough mentally and tough physically, and made the big plays in the big games.
Having an offense like that has to simplify the process of transitioning to being an NFL head coach, I would think.
Oh yeah, those are the guys that were proven players, and they were guys that were winners. You put them out there, and they knew how to win.
You had a very successful rookie year coaching. You were 8-6, and then you ended up making the championship game in '64 against the Browns, and then Super Bowl III you won against Namath. You had some great games. Was there a game that stood out for you in the championship?
The team that I had?
Yeah, was there a championship game that stood out in your mind that was your best coaching job?
Oh yeah, the perfect season when we won all the games, 17-0. That was a game to remember. Had a lot of great games to remember, but that nobody had ever done the 17-0 before.
How difficult was it leaving Baltimore for Miami?
It was tough to do. I love Baltimore, and I love the fans, and a lot of the things that were connected to the Baltimore and the Colts. But Miami was a great opportunity, a relatively new franchise, and some very good players.
And you built that offensive line. You had some great players. You had Langard, Larry Little, Kuchenberg, and they were basically off the scrap heap, and you turned them into Hall of Fame offensive linemen. Was that your greatest accomplishment?
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I'm very proud of. I think that, winning the most games as a coach is something I'm proud of, and then the perfect season, then back-to-back Super Bowls, 17-0 and 15-2 in a 2-year period.
How gratifying was beating the Chicago Bears in 1985?
Yeah, that's the best first half of football I've ever been associated with. We had 33 points at halftime against that great Bear defense, and it ended up, we won the game handily, and that ended up being the only game that the Bears lost that year. They ended up winning the Super Bowl.
What made that game so special for the Dolphins was everybody thought that defense was unstoppable, but you found a way to beat it by rolling out Marino, and he had such a quick release that they didn't have time to get to the quarterback.
He didn't roll out. He was always in the pocket.
But the Bears didn't have time to get to him because his release was so quick. It was snap
He
the
had
ball.
a great quick release, and he knew what he wanted to do with the ball. He had, great decision making, and we put him in situations where their safeties had to cover, our slot receiver, who was Nat Moore at the time, who was a great slot receiver.
So you coached Unitas, Greasy, and Dan Marino, 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. What was the main difference?
And Earl Morrall's in my Hall of Fame.
Right.
What made them such great players? Was it their talent or just their knowledge of the game?
Well, they had both. They had great talent. They had hard workers, knowledge of the game, great competitors. You have to have all those things going for you when you accomplish everything that they did.
In that unbeaten season, when Greasy goes down with a fractured ankle, and you have Earl Morrall, who played for you in Baltimore, how confident were you that he could just take over and lead the team the way that he was able to?
Well, you never expect somebody to step in and do, what Earl did. After Greasy went down, he led us all the way to the championship game, and then Greasy was healthy again, and I had to make that tough decision as to, when to put Greasy back in, because Earl had been playing so well. But, Earl was a temporary quarterback, and Greasy was a quarterback here and now and also in the future.
What I find truly amazing is coaches develop a style and they use that style throughout their career. You changed your style. With the undefeated Dolphins, you guys were a running team with Mercury Morris and Larry Zonka, but when Marino came, you guys became a passing team. How hard was it to change your philosophy?
Yeah, when you got an arm, like Marino, you see that, and you want to put him in a position where he can use that great ability. And every defensive coach in the league would have congratulated me if I would have had him hand the ball off and not use that great arm. So coaching is all about analyzing your talent and put them in a position where they can best use their talent.
Was the Notre Dame defense
I did that
in its entirety better than the sum of its parts?
Oh, we had some great players. We had some Hall of Famers, Nick Bonacani. We had some great players on that defense too, Manny Fernandez. But they were a team, I guess Landry gave them that nickname, a bunch of no-namers, and they took pride in being a team defense.
And a quarterback I forgot to mention that you went to Super Bowl with was David Woodley there in '82.
Yeah, we're to Super Bowl with David, and he was an athlete playing quarterback, and Marino was a quarterback playing quarterback. But we got the most out of Woodley, and he, thinking back, he was a great competitor, and that helped us win a lot of games.
Who did you model your coaching style after?
Well, John Carroll, Herb Isley was a Paul Brown disciple, and I played for Paul, and then I was with Blanton Collier for a long time, so it'd have to be the Paul Brown coaching philosophy.
Were you able to explain to your players what the Super Bowl was like before they played in their first one?
Oh yeah, you use all of your experience, and you try to get them to understand, the pressures, the importance of the game, how hard you work to get there, and you want to make sure that when you get there that you are ready to play the best game of your season.
Do you think that any coach is going to break your record for all-time victories?
There's a lot that there's a lot 347, and I don't know what the next number is, but you gotta coach a long time and win a lot of games.
If the World Football League hadn't come along, and if you hadn't lost Zonka and Kick and Warfield, do you think you could have won another title or two?
I don't think about that. I just think about the good things that happened and the accomplishments that we had.
What was your feeling when you went in the Hall of Fame?
That's just a great, great feeling, to be recognized for your career and then to go in there with so many people that have meant so much to the game, the Hall of Famers and the people that were going in with me in that class. And it's just a very, very special time in your life.
Now, how does a guy who eats a lot of crab cakes in Baltimore and great fish at Joe Stone Crab in Miami end up at the steakhouse?
It's a good question. And the hamburgers, we have Shula burgers now, too, that we have restaurants that sell hamburgers. So, that's right. We got stone crabs and we got fish and now we got hamburgers and steakhouses. So try us out.
What is it with those Baltimore Colts players? I mean, Gino Marchetti had all those hamburger joints. Now he's getting back in the food business. You and our Donovan, he was the best food sampler around, from what I heard.
Yeah, he knew how to eat. and then they had Joe Campanella, who was the guy that talked Gino into going into the restaurant business and utilizing Gino's name and putting it together and making a great restaurant chain.
If you had to win one game, who would your quarterback be?
I had to win one game?
Yes.
It's not a fair question. It's just, when you think about Greasy and you think about Unitas and you think about, all the things that the Earl Morrill, all the games that he won. And and I got to the Super Bowl with David Woodley. So, I just, give credit to the guys that I had, and I'm very satisfied and happy with them and the importance that they were in my career.
When your two sons, Mike and David, said they wanted to go into coaching, did you try to talk them out of it?
No, they were around all the time. They were ball boys, and they chartered plays on the sideline, and Dave played at Dartmouth, and Mike played at Alabama, and so they knew what they wanted, and they were willing to do the hard work and to compete and do the things that are necessary to move on in their careers.
Who would you say was the greatest player you saw play?
Oh, you'd have to, I guess, have Jim Brown up there is one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player, and Otto Graham, I had so much respect for Otto. When he was a quarterback for the Browns, all he ever did was win championships. And so I've been around a lot of great players. My players here in Miami, Dan Marino, the way that he, throws the football, threw the football, and all the excitement he brought to the game.
A player that one player brought up to us as one of the greatest players of all time because he played both ways was Sammy Baugh.
Sammy Baugh?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
I never saw him. I'm too young to see him play, but they said this guy could do it all.
Yeah, he was a great player. I don't remember how much he played on defense, but at that time, I think a lot of them played both ways. Chuck, Bednarik
Right.
from the Eagles, he played both ways, but that's been a long time ago.
Did you have a favorite player when you were growing up?
I was a big Cleveland Browns fan, and we used to go to the games. And when I was in college, John Carroll was right near Cleveland Stadium, and I'd go to the games there. So most of my, favorites were all Cleveland Brown players.
Did you ever dream of coaching the Browns?
I don't think so. I just pretty happy with the way things worked out.